Hey loves, it's me, Love Jones. I am back with another one. And so this one here is no cards. I'm just kind of finishing off where I left on the last video. And so I flipped through a few chapters and now I'm here at Peter. This is verse 3, 14. Chapter 3, verse 14. It says, "But even if you should suffer for the sake of righteousness, you are happy. However, do not fear what they fear, nor be disturbed, but sanctify the Christ as Lord in the hearts, always ready to make defense before everyone demands of you a reason for the hope you have, but doing so with a mild temper and deep respect. Maintain a good conscience, so that in whatever way you are spoken against, those who speak against you may be put to shame because of your good conduct as followers of Christ. For it's better to suffer because you are doing good, if it's God's will to allow it, than because you are doing evil. For Christ died once for all time for sins, a righteous person for unrighteous ones, in order to lead you to God. He was put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit. And in this state, he went and preached in the spirit in prison, who had formerly been disobedient when God was patiently waiting in Noah's days while the ark was being constructed, in which a few people, that is 8 souls, were carried safely through the water. Baptism, which corresponds to this, is also saving you, not by removing of the filth of the flesh, but by the request of God for the good conscience. Through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, he is at God's right hand, for he went to heaven, and the angels and authorities and powers were made subject to him. Since Christ suffered in the flesh, you too arm yourselves with the same mental disposition, because the person who has suffered in the flesh has desisted from sins, so that they may live the remainder of his time in the flesh, no more for the desires of men, but for God's will. For the time that is passed by is sufficient for you to have done the will of the nations, when you carried on in acts of brazen conduct, unbridled passions, over drinking, wild parties, drinking bouts, and lawless idolatries. They are puzzled that you do not continue running with them in the same decadent course of debauchery, so they speak abusively of you. But these people will render an account to the one who is ready to judge those living and those dead. In fact, this is why the good news was declared also to the dead, so that although they are judged in the flesh, from the standpoint of men, they might live in harmony with the Spirit from God's standpoint. But the end of all things has drawn close. Therefore, be sound in mind and be vigilant with a view to prayers. Above all things, have intense love for one another, because love covers a multitude of sins. Be hospitable to one another without grumbling. To the extent that each one has received a gift, use it in ministering to another as fine stewards of God's undeserved kindness that is expressed in various ways. If anyone speaks, let him do so as speaking pronouncements from God. If anyone ministers, let him do so as depending on the strength that God supplies, so that in all things God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. The glory of the might are his forever and ever. And then I skipped over to chapter 5, verse 6. Again, this is Peter. It says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you in due time, while you throw all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you." So you're putting everything in God's hands. Keep your senses, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking to devour someone. But take your stand against him firm in faith, knowing that the same kind of sufferings are being experienced by your entire association of your brothers in the world. But after you have suffered a little while, the God of all undeserved kindness, who called you to his everlasting glory in the union with Christ, will himself finish your training. He will make you firm. He will make you strong. He will firmly ground you. To him be the might forever. Amen. I just wanted to read that because I felt like it almost went perfectly with what I was just reading y'all from Job. How Job went through so much suffering, how he had everything, and how God allowed him to be tested by the devil, by Satan, and he had to endure so much suffering. And this just ended off saying that he will make you firm, he'll make you strong again, he'll lift you up out of whatever it is that you're going through. And so again, I would say, remain strong in your beliefs, in that you know, because in the end, you will be lifted up from whatever this is that you're going through. You will be placed back, if not where you was, but in a better place than where you were. Because you have now endured. You've now been through this pain and this suffering. You've now been humbled, I guess, by God himself. And because you've endured so much, it says that Christ will come down and he will take the rest for you. After you've endured so much, he'll come down and he will finish this off for you, and he will lift you up. This reminds me of the footsteps, 818 on the phone. The footprints in the sand, if you guys have ever heard of that. It's like when you felt like you were walking alone and you only seen one set of footprints. It was then that he carried you. I feel like this is the case here. Once it gets to the worst of the worst and you feel like you can't take anymore, it's when he'll step in and he'll finish this for you and he'll lift you up out of it. So remain strong in whatever this is. Whatever it is you're going through. Whatever it is you believe in spite of all the people that you may have coming against you, in spite of all the things that may be said about you, or the slander, defamation of character, in spite of all of the lies, you will be brought out of this. I have a card that says you will win that battle you didn't even know that you were fighting. And so I feel like that's the case here. Whether you're aware of what you're going through or whether you are still trying to figure it out, you will get through this. You will win that battle that you didn't know you were fighting. And so I just wanted to come on here and read this to y'all, because as I was reading it, I felt like it went perfectly with where I left off on my last video when I was talking about what Job endured. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it there, y'all. I'll be back.